two. Okay. Welcome, everyone. My name is Ryan, and today's session is on the topic of building and maintaining lasting, deep, and meaningful relationships. And we are circling around the topic of quality time. So to tell you a little bit about myself, for those who are new, which I believe half of us are, I'm a systems engineer and analyst by trade. So I have both a bachelor's and a master's in electrical and computer engineering. I spent a few years in grad school when I was working on my master's degree, teaching undergrad and rewriting a lot of our undergraduate curriculum. And one of the things that spoke to me the most is the ability to teach people and lead them through their educational process. And that is one of the reasons why I went to grad school. So I love to teach. I love to teach people of many different backgrounds. The classes that I taught were mostly freshmen and sophomore of 100 to 200 students. So it was really a challenge for me to learn people's names and understand how each individual person may learn differently. So I'm here not as a lecturer. I'm here as I believe that I have some value to give, and I want to reach as many people as possible and help them through that process. So professionally speaking, in that realm of engineering, I have over 10 years of experience in basically solving problems. So as a systems engineer and analyst, I not only design complex systems that are meant to interchange and work together with others, but I need to figure out why they break. So that's kind of how I tend to look at the world, is understanding the underlying process and seeing where we've made assumptions and we don't realize that we've made those assumptions about life. And then when we realize that we don't have a reason, then it's easy to go back and fix a few things. But if we don't even ask ourselves the right questions, we may not know what's going on or how to fix it. So with that being said, a lot of what I've worked on over the last 6 years is taking that knowledge into the rest of my life and my friends' lives, meaning being a relationship analyst and consultant. So I've been married for the last few years. I have about 6 years of experience in coaching people and helping people through this process. And I've worked with different age groups, usually young adults and adults, meaning people from 18 to 26, 27 as one typical generational group. And then maybe others from maybe 27 or 30 up to 45 is what I usually work with. If you're not within that range, no problem. Not really an issue. It's just where most of my experience lies. I've spoken at a lot of marriage seminars. Sorry, no, I have attended many marriage seminars. And what I have done is worked with a lot of the organizers on tailoring their process to the community they're speaking to. So one of the challenges of community building and teaching people is understanding the audience. So one thing that you'll know from me is I love feedback. So at the end, if you wanted to give good feedback to let me know what I'm doing right, or possibly give me a suggestion, that helps me and it helps everybody I'm talking to. So please feel free to do so. I also developed what's called the Single to Married program, which teaches people what they need to know in order to set up their life the right way to get married within a year or less. And I have an online program for that. I also started building up a network of communities. So what I'll talk about later is my online community where you'll learn the Single to Married program. And I worked with other business partners to develop other communities for similar ideas like directly self-improvement. So we'll talk about those later. So one thing I wanted to highlight, hope is not a strategy. Whether you're religious or not, as far as I know, every faith tradition that I've come across, it is not just hoping, it is do the best of your ability and what you think you can do, go put the effort in and hope at the same time. And that's how I choose to live my life. And I want everyone to know that hope is a very strong and powerful emotion, and we should not let go of it. But at the same time, we need to take the energy we get from hope and the motivation and at least try something. So we need to be intentional with our life. Intention is the key, and being casual is our enemy. Also, I know rhyming might be corny or cheesy, but every now and then I think it's funny. So before we get into it, I wanted to introduce the different types of relationships that I've broken down into 6 key areas. This helps us pinpoint perhaps the dynamic of the relationships we already have Now, this main program today is tailored more towards marriage. However, there are a lot of generic pieces of wisdom that can apply to your friendships, your relationships with your family, and possibly even your coworkers. However, I'm going to talk about these in the context of marriage and friends. So, when we're talking about relationships of convenience, uh, the basic idea of it is think of those friends you saw every day at school and the ones that you never got their number, you never texted, you never called them, you never hung out with them outside of school, unless maybe you were on the same sports team or some other extracurricular activity. Those are relationships of convenience. I'm going to see them already. I'm going to be around where they are. So we might be more acquaintances than anything else. But if we stop that activity, they're not going to be in my life anymore. This is relationships of convenience, of need and support, meaning that my relationship is mostly based on that person, of needing something from them or supporting them. The next one is opportunity. Usually it's strategic. This is most often in business, and people have that underlying assumption of, hey, we're not really like friends. We could be, but we're going to keep up that type of relationship for both of our sakes because we both want opportunity out of it. Desire, meaning we want that person for a specific reason. It's not necessarily opportunity in the business sense. This might be sexual attraction. It might be the fact that we simply have fun around them. And that's all we're looking for, fun. We desire that type of new thing in our life, and they give it to us, and that's what we're looking for. The fifth one is regret. I would say the thing that most often falls into this is what people call rebound relationships, where they start out from a place of desire, but we don't have a really good foundation and we get into something we shouldn't. And then we have to leave that and we regret it. And this whole group is based on the idea of we can either reevaluate our current relationships or plan better for our future because we all know that it hurts to lose a friend. It all hurts to lose family members who break ties with us. It hurts to disappoint those around us. And it really hurts when we're getting, whether it's engaged or even married, to cut off an engagement or end in divorce. Um, Sometimes, unfortunately, there's nothing we can do about it. Things happen in life and people may change. But if we know ourselves and how we plan well enough, then it's easier to understand and cope with whatever may come and move on from it and plan better in the future. The last place is of service and benevolence. What I teach is that whatever your relationship is, if they are close to you, they're part of your life, they're going to know something vulnerable about you, but it has to come from a place of service and benevolence to each other. This is the strongest foundation of really close, true, long-lasting friendship, as well as marriage. If people are not serving each other, it is very easy for a relationship to become in an imbalanced state. And if you're not striving for the good of the other person as well as the union, then it's most likely going to fail. And if it doesn't, it's simply because they're probably hard-headed and don't want to quit, even though they might be in a state where they should, because they're not moving to get better. So with that being said, the first step in being intentional is thinking and planning, and I call this step one, or the decision-making process, the art of selection. I love languages. I am currently studying another language, and one of the biggest parts of it is understanding the root words and the root letters. So I just decided to look up the etymology of decision. And when it comes from Latin, we see that it means to cut off. And I thought that was very interesting because when we say cut off, we tend to think in negative connotations and negative terms. But I wanted to frame decision in a different light and a different process. To me, decision making means when I think about all the possibilities and I'm trying to determine what I'm going to do, the moment that I determine what I'm going to do and I do it, I've cut off all the others from existing. That's really what it is. But I think it's very important to think about because when we make a decision, we're being very particular about it, and we should plan and have a reason why. So when we make a decision, we need to make it meaningful. I call this section the art of quality time. So how do we engage in quality time with the people close to us or the people that we want to become close to. It starts with effective communication, what I call the art of relevant conversation. Now, we're going to start in kind of generic, vague terms, and we're going to get a little bit more specific as we go on in each of these sections. So I would say what is relevant means what's relevant to you and what's relevant to the person you're speaking to. And when I mean relevant, I mean, what do they care about? If we're not engaging in conversation to figure out what they care about, then not only are we not really intentionally getting to know them, but we're going to be speaking past them. And if we're speaking past them too much, even if they were interested in us, they'll stop being interested in us. So these include things about what matters in life to you or them, what is important to you, how do you spend your free time or even your work time? Like, did you choose your job intentionally? Is that something that you're passionate about? What are your goals in life outside of work? What do you want to do? How do you want to change the world? How do you want to change your life? What do you want to strive for? And again, what does the other person care about? So, this collage of photos over here is signifying like, do you care about the idea of family a lot? Is that what you want to focus on? Is most of your free time spent with your friends, and what activities do you do together? How are they good influences upon you? What are some stories you can think about that really define who you are and what you went through in life? The one in the bottom right is specifically the romantic side of things. Are you more romantic and possibly traditional? Are you lavish? Are you grand or extravagant? Or are you somebody who may like the little things more that you don't want to be put on the spot? These are a lot of things that tell us about our personality and how we might want to execute gestures of appreciation for the other person, which we'll talk about later. And the one in the bottom left is basically like one of the things you can talk about. What gets you frustrated? Like, what are you passionate about? Or do you have humanitarian causes that really matter to you? Have you studied their history? Is there something that you might have done or contributed to? Have you volunteered? These are all examples. Again, one of the best ways to connect with people is learning how to be a storyteller. We are known through our stories, especially if you pay attention to how people tell stories. It's what they choose to emphasize. And we should look at how we tell stories and the language we use and how we emphasize what happened to us. What was the point of that story? What was I trying to get across? Now, these start to get deeper. And this is the point. In order to have meaningful, deep, lasting relationships, we really need to get to know somebody. So, which means we have to let ourselves become vulnerable enough to show a side of us that is true. Because if we only look on the surface, we're only going to get the surface. And unfortunately, this is what often happens, and I think is one of the key reasons for divorce, is people are not intentional in getting to know somebody, and they may not know how to, and they're too casual, and they simply get used to the person over time and accept them as part of their lives when there has been no permanent commitment made. And after that permanent commitment, people just sigh and then they show them their true selves. So now people can change. It does happen. But again, I think it's on us to do the best of our ability. And when things go wrong, it's easy for us to realize what we're responsible for and what we did wrong. And just there are some things in life we can't control. So everything that I'm talking about, we need to plan, we need to be intentional, we need to figure out. Again, take it in the scope of to the best of our ability. So I'm not trying to blame anybody here. It's just how can we be better day by day to make the outcome better every time? So what drives you? What made you cry? What makes you happy? When was the last time that you laughed so hard you couldn't breathe? This tells a lot about how much time they spend with their friends, what they like, what they enjoy, and you want to get stories out of somebody. We don't want to ask questions that are basically like, I don't know, what's your favorite color? How was the weather today? We want to ask a leading question that gets them to go like, yeah, this thing happened to me, right? Like people love gossip. So let's tap into the virality of gossip and how people tell stories, but we want it to be good, right? We don't want to gossip. So if you can get them to talk about themselves and tell stories, this is a big way that two people can get much closer together. But it's deeper than that. It also includes, why do you think the way that you do? What are your morals and why? How do you move through the world? Like I said, think about yourself. How do you tell stories? For instance, get a friend, and next time you tell them a story, just ask them a couple questions like, what did you think about the way I told that? Or even, talk to a family member, or even notice how people react to the way you tell stories. Um, and I guess, some of those questions, it depends on your dynamic with the other person. You might ask those literally. I don't necessarily think all of those should be asked literally. I think that we can come up with more creative ways of entering the storytelling process. But I mean, the last one, I would ask somebody straight up, like, what spoke to you today? Like, what inspired you? Like, what got you motivated? Uh, and again, one of the things I want to tell people is there are green flags and red flags that we can see in relationships. I'm not going to talk about them today. I'm saving that for a more in-depth future segment and process. But a huge red flag for people is if you're going to ask a question, you're not going to have an answer ready. I think it's seen as very shady. And usually people who come from traumatic experiences who are hurt will want to protect themselves by getting to know somebody a lot more than they're willing to share before they actually are willing to share things. And people who don't understand and don't come from that background are going to be turned off by it. So whatever we're doing, whatever we're asking from somebody, we should be ready to give as well. And getting to know somebody can be awkward. Sometimes it's like, I don't know how to answer that question. And so it makes it really easy to bring that energy to break the ice and go, look, I know I might be putting you on the spot. Maybe this might inspire you. I want to tell you what my answer to that question would be, and just go from there. Does that make sense? Cool. So we also need to be intentional with the way we listen. There's listening and hearing. Hearing, I like to define as receiving information passively. My ear might be hearing everything and it's going to my brain and I'm not thinking about it and I don't care. A lot of the times people say that hearing is listening with the intent to respond, not with the intent to understand. However, listening is an active process that you're not only getting that information, you're not hearing them, you want to understand it. You're trying to dissect it and see how it makes sense. You may ask follow-up questions to better understand them, and you want to respond with relevance. And one of the biggest important things here to note is think about, why are they telling me something? One of the reasons why marriages split apart and relationships split apart is because we don't know, or we're not thinking enough about, does the person want my advice or do they want my support? That is one of the biggest things that breaks up marriages, is you'll have men who tend to respond in order to solve a problem, which may come off cold, and women who tend to talk because they get a lot out of just somebody at home that will listen to them and want to understand their problems. And sometimes they want a solution and sometimes they don't. And again, I may be playing on gender stereotypes, but I want to say this is the generic trend, and everyone is on their own spectrum. And so it's up to you in whatever relationship you're trying to craft or nurture to understand where you are and where the other person is. So we're going to do a quick exercise. If anybody wants to go through this exercise with me, that's fine. If not, I can simply just present the next point. So I want to talk about small talk. Does anybody want to go through a process so I can demonstrate what small talk is and what small talk is not?
I'll
Okay,
do it.
Molly, go
I'll do
ahead.
it, Ryan. I'm here to engage.
Wonderful. Okay, so what is your idea of small talk? What do you think small talk is?
Keeping it on the surface. I mean, doing everything that means to not be vulnerable,
Mhm.
share too much about yourself, keep them at a distance. keep it, just nicey nice, and
Yep.
just don't get too deep.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful response. I agree. I think people do this. I'll get to you, Allie. I see your hand. I think people do this because when we're children and we're naive and we make friends and we don't know how the world can hurt us, we get hurt. And then we have this decision making process of I don't like to be hurt. I don't want to be hurt. What can I do to stop that? But we don't always have the best role models or people to guide us in our life. And we have to figure out so much of it ourselves that sometimes we make the mistake of putting up walls rather than filters. A wall stops people from coming in and from you reaching them, but really we should be designing filters, which is a way to see them and allow the good in and try and keep the bad out. So that's why some people might act that way. So can you give me an example of a question that might be small talk?
Um,
And if not, that's totally fine.
um, how was your day?
Okay. Okay. I'm gonna take that and I'm gonna see what Allie has to say.
Okay.
Allie, what do you have to say?
Hey, Ryan and
Hey.
Molly and Angela. Okay, so I think small talk is superficial engagement done mostly out of social and societal norms and pleasantries. It's not to necessarily be heavily vested in getting to truly know the person. It's just almost like if someone were passing a beach ball and the goal is to not have it hit the floor, in a crowd
Yeah.
of people, you're just passing it around.
Okay.
And the goal is just to keep the conversation afloat, but I'm not trying to know you like that. And so it's just pleasant, somewhat disconnected engagement, although you're
Okay.
you're leaning in, but you're not really plugged in.
Okay. I would also agree with that. Thank you. That was a well thought out response from both of you. Um,
Mm. And an example of small talk would be, and
uh,
I agree with everything Molly mentioned, an example of small talk is, oh my God, isn't it a beautiful day? What do you think about this weather? It's amazing, right?
exactly. Or
It is
the,
cherry
when you're going to
blossom season.
Walmart,
Yeah.
when you're going to
Mm-hmm.
Walmart and the person greets you, hi, how are you? And you're
Yeah.
like, if I'm a sincere person, I want to respond, but I know they're not going to, and it's not like really awkward. It's like a nicety. Um,
Yes.
so from a societal perspective, I would agree with both of you. I want to redefine small talk. I would
Mhm.
say, and I want to say that that type of conversation is useless and irrelevant, except for just keeping on good terms or keeping to those societal norms that you mentioned or being an acquaintance with somebody. Because that's like a really good way to be tactful and not, come across as rough or abrasive. I'm going to redefine small talk. There's small talk and there's big talk. So now we're talking about TikTok, apparently. So anyway, so uh big talk would be answers to those questions that I talked about in a slide before. Like, what really defines you? What was a defining moment in your life? Who hurt you? Like, how do you feel about it? And not to be like a therapist and all dark, but like, who's your best friend? What is the greatest thing you've accomplished? Why are you proud of it? Like, what gets you up in the morning? Right? I see a sparkle in your eyes. They're so beautiful. Why do you think that is? Stuff like this. Um, big talk. Small talk is a way to initiate steps further into getting to know somebody. Small talk is asking a question that might be harmless if gone unanswered, but allows somebody the space to decide how much they want to share initially. And the thing I'm going to talk about is if we want relationships, it's our job to put in the effort and the opportunity to succeed so that we cannot blame ourselves that we did not try. If the other person does not reach the hand out the same way and help us move forward, we have to realize it's not balanced. That doesn't necessarily make them bad or evil or bad at relationships. It could just simply mean they're not interested. and that's okay. So, uh, who wants to try just asking me a quick question and seeing how far we can go with it? And if no one's comfortable with that, that's fine. I have a video and a good point to make. Okay, Allie, let's go ahead.
I'm game. Thank you. So what would I ask you? A small talk question
Yeah,
or a big talk question?
let's start with small.
Small talk. Okay. So Ryan, like you seem to be a relationship guy. This is cool, right?
Yeah, I have a lot of fun doing this. I think it's something
Yeah,
really important to me.
that's really cool. That's great. Yeah, because everyone has relationships when you think about it. So it's like universally relevant, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Mhm.
What about you?
I think relationships make the world go around. They are the fundamental cornerstone for purpose in life, being connected to someone. We have relationships with everyone. Even my next door neighbor, I have a relationship with them, whether I'm connected or not, that's still the relationship that we have. And so, yeah, universal relevance relationships. We all have them, we all get them.
I like that you think that way because, I think that people don't really engage in their life that sort of way and they don't care about the people that are around them and they may take them for granted. And that's kind
Mm-hmm.
of why I'm doing this is because I have made very good friendships and I've lost good friendships in my life. So that's what motivates me. But what
Mm-hmm.
motivates you when it comes to relationships? I saw you brought it up. Is there something you wanted to talk about?
Okay, so request to get clarification on something. So
Yeah.
this is an engaged small talk exchange. Got it. Okay, because there
Yep.
are small talk exchanges where the goal is not to really hook into one another. You're just keeping the ball from hitting the floor, and you're just
Right.
passing the
So
beach.
right.
Yeah,
So
there are depths of engagement with this,
right.
obviously. Mm-hmm.
Thank you for your engagement with me now. I'm going to move on
Yeah,
to the next part, and let me
sure.
explain.
Okay.
I apologize if I didn't explain it well, but I asked, so you and Molly gave very good responses when I asked about what do you think small talk is? And I agreed, and I said, I'm going to redefine small talk in the idea of being intentional with our relationships moving forward, and that small talk is a way to ask a question where if I'm not interested or I don't have an answer, it's not so large that somebody feels disrespected, but it's giving me the space to give as much information. And if anybody comes, I don't know if what the three of you do for a living or what background you have, but if you're in the background of research or customer facing relationships or journalism or science, we have to be careful about our biases. And
Mhm.
especially in journalism, when we're asked questions, we don't want to ask leading questions. We want to ask questions that let somebody feel free to speak their mind, and we ask follow up things from there. So that's really what small talk is. So thank you for engaging. I'm going to give you kind of an example about a question that may be considered bad small talk, just to not drop the ball on the floor, but could actually lead to a further conversation. Um, so, if somebody were to ask me, like, okay, well, do you like movies? Well, I mean, on the surface, that might be the same as, like, what's your favorite color, or, like, I don't know, something similar. Like but the thing is, this is different because you're asking me about something that I may like or do often or have experience with. And you're giving me the space to kind of hit the ball back and play tennis with you. You hit it into my side, I hit it into yours. If I'm not hitting it back, you can try and move on. Right? That gives you kind of an key of what I'm interested in or not. But let's go down this route of movies. What's my favorite movie? I might tell you, you know what? That's really hard to pick. You might say, okay, whatever pops in your head. What scene do you remember from any of your favorite movies that's like one of your favorite scenes and you'll never forget it? And I might say, and of course, I prepared this ahead of time. Like, of course, because I want to show it to you guys. So I would say, oh, have you heard of Rocky? Rocky Balboa? Have you heard of the series? You might tell me, yeah. Well, if we have it in common, now we can continue that conversation. If you said no, Be like, that's fine, but like, let me tell you why, right? Let me tell you why I can't get this out of my head. So then I might, now here I can show you a clip. We're in the day of smartphones. Maybe you can search it up on your phone on YouTube. So I'm actually going to bring this up real quick. Can everyone see my screen? Yep. Okay. This is about just under a minute long. I'm going to show it to you and then I'm going to explain to you why. You believe in me? I know what else would. I really love you, man. Okay. So, you might ask like how that makes me feel, or I might already tell you. And what I'm going to tell you is like when it comes to my friendships in my past, as somebody who did a lot of martial arts similar to boxing and was really invested when I was younger in becoming a professional soccer player, that idea of wanting to give up when I was run into the ground was apparent all the time. But I had a friend, Kinsey, who would not let me. And as a goalkeeper in soccer, if you're not familiar, I had a lot on my shoulders every single game. And he would literally pick me up and shove me back into the ground and tell me, get up. Just like him saying there is no tomorrow. I always say, look, man, I'm tired. Let's do that tomorrow. There is no tomorrow. It's a man who helps me as a friend become better. And if I'm going to give up on myself, they're not going to give up on me. And that's so important to me. And you can see how much their relationship affected him. Right at the beginning, it's him remembering his friend and somebody who helped him throughout his life, and he's dead. That weight of there is no tomorrow is very apparent when we lose somebody that matters to us. So, like, I went to a friend's funeral back in October or September. It was a few days before his 28th birthday. He died in a car crash. And I will remember him like this because he helped me through stuff in college. That's why it's one of my favorite movies. So I was in that position of receiving that help from my friend Kinsey. And in college, I had a friend named Nick, and we had 8 hours, and it was 2 a.m. We had 8 hours to a final exam. And this was a man who's much taller than me. I'm 5'10. He's like 6'2", much stronger than me. But sometimes the realities of life set in so much that, anxiety attacks are a thing. And this man was on top of our lab table, kind of shivering and didn't know what to do. And it was imminent doom coming in 8 hours. But I remembered that. And I remembered what my friends had done for me in the past and the people who helped me through and what like a real friendship is, especially for men. So I put that aside and I tried to teach him as best as I could. And in trying to teach him, I was studying myself. He likes to smoke. He had a cigar. We kicked a soccer ball around for 30 minutes before he went in there and he aced it. So, now this, I'm used to talking with people. I'm used to being a speaker. I can give all of that information and more right from the get-go. But the idea of small talk is to trigger somebody to talk about something that they're passionate about or they care about and they have the space to. And maybe if they're a little bit awkward about it, that you kind of know where to go from there, because everybody, when they're getting to know somebody, are worried about a few things. Are they crazy? What problems do they have? Are they pleasant? Like, I don't know what I'm getting myself into. So this is a part of suave and tact and character and being able to be like, making somebody feel easy, but also putting that effort forward. Now, I might not have said, I can't remember, I don't really like movies. You could also ask, well, what do you do? What do you do for fun? Or like, what have you really worked on in your life that you're happy about, you're proud about? So I might pivot to something else. does everyone understand what I'm saying about small talk and where we can move to bigger and more deeper conversations?
Yeah, sure do.
Wonderful. Is there something else you wanted to, is there something you wanted to say, Allie?
Good question. So that was a beautiful explanation. And thank you for sharing the clip. I am wondering if small talk is also based on your newly revised or the flavor that you put on it, if it's also kind of like a bid for connection, like, I'm just putting almost like fishing. I'm seeing like a casting a line, in the direction of another.
Mhm.
And I'm hoping that it's something that they can bite upon and we can talk about that, and it's kind of like that, where it's not anything big and heavy, but it's just little, almost like breadcrumbing for connection,
Mhm.
it's a little bit of a dropping here and there that you're using to nourish and feed, and they're doing the same thing.
Yep. I would say that's a very good analogy or metaphor. Yeah.
Hmm. I would never have thought of small talk in this way, but yeah, I can see how it's kind of revolutionizing the whole concept of what is small talk as opposed to big talk. Like little micro vignette type engagement.
Um, this is something that you have to pick up or learn in like the business development world. So
Mhm.
right now I double both as a systems analyst as well as working in business development to gain the company I also work for new clients. And that's something that if no mentor teaches you, you're going to have to learn the hard way. And so I'm trying to bring that to the idea of romantic relationships and how we build those relationships. It's the same way. Like we may talk about things that are maybe inconsequential if they're not touched upon, but they're at least a way to get to bigger and better things. And I mean, it's to the point where, my mentor at my company, when it comes to like my mentor in cybersecurity, for instance, is where I'm currently working. He has like, friendships with companies who end up being rivals, and that doesn't tear them apart. It also doesn't mean that they're so close, despite coming from complete rivalry. It just depends. So now let's talk about activities. I call this joint fun, the art of relevant activities. So just like the way we talk, we want to have a intention for what we want to accomplish or do together in order to get to know each other. So how we choose an activity, something that you have in common. If you like movies, I like movies, there's a movie we both like, we can talk about it. If an activity we both have in common, we can do it. Why? Because now it's less about, oh my God, what is the other person going to think of me? What if I mess up? What all this? And it's more, I can focus on the other person while enjoying the activity. Now the activity is kind of in the background that we both know it, and I can focus on now that conversation. Something one of you can teach. Like I said, reaching that hand out and going, hey, for instance, I like fountain pens. That might be boring to some of you. You might go, what's a fountain pen? I've never used one, or might hate them. But I can teach a lot about fountain pens and how to use one and how it's really cool and how I started calligraphy. So sometimes we might want to dive into something that one of you can teach the other, because it also shows you and is a way to evaluate somebody, which we'll talk about a lot more in the future. If they're teaching you, they're coming from a place of in hierarchy of I know more than you about something and I'm going to teach you about it. When we're in relationships, that is a give and take. There's always things going to be across the board in your character and your knowledge and your experience. You have more of something, the other person has more of something else. You always have something to teach each other. So it's actually a really good gauge, not only to really learn how they think, and where they're coming from, but even like why they're interested in it. Like I hate baseball, but I had a friend that would invite me to baseball games with their family. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to be more interested in why the fact that they like it rather than the fact that I don't like it. So I went and I ended up appreciating it enough that I could sit with them and establish that relationship and move on to bigger, better things rather than the small things. Something new to you both can be very fun. A personal experience is my wife and I, my current wife, before we decided to get married and we were still getting to know each other. We both said we liked hiking and both admitted to each other quite truthfully that we haven't done real hiking. So I don't know where everyone is from, but I'm in the Fairfax DMV area. We went out an hour and a half away to Shenandoah. I picked a trail that said, hey, here's a line. It's like this long. Get there. It's hard to find. Oh, and by the way, like, we don't know how long in, but there's a weird signpost that most people miss. If you take that, you'll go to a waterfall. I was like, wonderful. I want to take her to a waterfall. And in the middle, after trusting each other and not wanting to fight about it, we took a wrong turn. And we were so stubborn about it. We're like, no, we're not going to quit. We're not going to give up. It ended up being nighttime and it took us 3 hours to hike back in the complete dark. Had to rely on each other. My flashlight went out. Her phone died after we used it for a flashlight, and then mine barely held on to the end. So it was a lot of trust, right? But at the end, we were so exhausted that she started like having a little tears like I'm glad this is over. She had blisters on her feet, whatever it was, but at the end of the day we both were trying to help each other, lead each other, forgive each other, and get to that end point and even support each other in our first hike that was that long. And at the end, this is why I talk about serving each other and being considerate of others. I didn't care about whose fault it was, because at the end of the day, if it was her fault and I knew it, then I should have corrected it at the beginning. And likewise, so then it doesn't matter who's to blame. The whole point of it was to go on an experience, not for it to go perfect. So we need to set that expectation beforehand. Um, and at the end, we both apologize to each other, thinking that we completely ruined the experience for the other person. We want to reschedule and try it again, and maybe we'll be more careful about it. But that's how I am as a person. That's how she is as a person. That's what we were looking for in somebody else. So that's how doing something new to you both can really help you get closer together. And it's okay if it doesn't work out. It's okay if like you didn't like that activity. You're kind of like searching for things in common. Um, Now I might be talking about in the context of getting to know somebody, but if you already know somebody, this is like a new way to spice up your life. We should always be growing and trying new experiences. Life gets dull when we're not looking to learn or grow as a person. Um, we have maybe 12 minutes left, so I'm gonna try and get through this at a quicker pace. I really wanted to have that interactive thing because it was suggested by somebody in our previous meetup yesterday, and I wanted to give more concrete examples. But something that relies on teamwork and competition is a good idea. This includes board games, sports you might know, projects, or like I said, adventures, where you got to rely on each other for directions and suggestions and whatever else. But at the end of the day, we have to learn how to get vulnerable. If we refuse to be vulnerable, other people will refuse to be vulnerable with us. And it's just a fact of life that we have to be willing to be hurt, even by the people we've already committed to. There are many times, and I'll talk about conflict avoidance and conflict remediation, like how to fix it when it's somebody that we're fighting with. But I can't tell you the number of times that, like, because I'm living with my wife and we've committed to each other, we're starting a family, we're vulnerable and we know those vulnerabilities. And sometimes we have failures in our character where we hurt each other. But we have a process for getting through that. And if we weren't vulnerable in the first place, then we wouldn't have ever gotten to know each other and we couldn't move forward from there. Now, how vulnerable you need to be and how much you need to share is on a personal basis. And that's something that I tend to work with people one-on-one through my coaching on ongoing situations to really help them put it in context for their life. How to keep a relationship. I call it the art of thoughtfulness and serving. The whole thing, as I'm trying to say, is get to know them, not of them. I know of so many celebrities and influential people in the world. I know of our current president and past presidents. I can bring up pictures. I can bring up videos. I can bring up interviews. Okay, I can bring up so many things, and at the end of the day, do I really know them or do I just know of them? Are they going to be a different person in front of me when I'm alone with them? And I think almost 100% yes. Absolutely. So we're not trying to get to know of somebody and ask shallow things. We may start there, but it's always with that journalistic intention of going deeper and deeper and also sharing. It has to be reciprocal. So we want to get to know them. Starting with, we want to keep up our relationships through appreciation. Nobody wants to feel used. They want to feel appreciated through gratitude and service. No matter what you feel inside, nobody has insight to what you're feeling in your heart. They can only tell what's going on if they see or experience something from you. And I broke it out in two key areas: words and actions. So when it comes to our words, this includes compliments that we admire or like something about the other person. We like to be liked. Any affirmations to help them in ways and things that they are insecure about. This is a way of supporting them. Sincerity. We always want that person that means something to us to know we're not lying or deceiving or trying to manipulate them. We need to know that we can be sincere and how to show it so they can feel that sincerity. We want to uplift people in our relationships. We don't want to demean them. Sometimes they need to have tough love, but it's always in an uplifting manner is what we want to strive for. And the last one, when it comes to that, is when it comes to the quality of our communication, which we talked about before, frequency and time. Maybe somebody can keep up a relationship by speaking only a certain number of times a day or a week or a month or whoever it is. But maybe they're also only free at certain times. So if you know that, try and make it a priority to make time for them that might be easier for them. When we make it easier for others, they will like us more. Now, as I'm saying this about serving and making it easier for others, and we're also going to talk about solving others' problems, of course, it's always in a balance. We always want to make sure there's a balance in the relationship. So as we serve, we are also being served. We don't want to get in the position where I want this relationship so bad, even if I have a reason for it, that I'm giving and I'm giving and I'm giving, and all they're doing is taking. And that is a completely separate topic that I will talk about in the future as well, kind of like we're doing today. So, some actions, gifts. It's not always about what makes you think of them, which people should learn to appreciate. It's what is useful to them too. Anytime you make somebody's life easier, help solve a problem, it brings you closer together, as long as they're not using you. Service. How can you help them? Quality time is what we previously talked about. Sacrifice and priority. Do they know that when they need you, you will do what you can to be there for them? And that the thing that's stopping you is something of a higher importance that they can understand, or it's out of your control. Invitations. This means make sure to think of them and reach out to them and invite them to something. Even if you think they're going to say no, you want them to know that you're thinking of them, especially when it comes to introverted people. If you know they're introverted, like I said, just give them the opportunity. Maybe they want to accept out of the blue. Maybe they think it's important and they are seeing this and going, huh, I know I'm introverted, but maybe I should try a little bit to get out of my shell. But it's not just things you like or you're doing. Maybe like if my best, like I said, my friend likes baseball. I hate baseball. I might say, hey, you want to go to an Orioles game? I don't like it, but I'm saying that I appreciate our friendship enough. I want to do something with you that I know you like, even though it's not my favorite thing. And people really appreciate that. And again, solve people's problems. Don't bring more problems for them. So, for instance, by the way, we have 6 minutes left. Are people okay staying just a little bit late?
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Okay, wonderful. So I want to give you another example. So with my friend M, he now lives in another state. I fortunately had to move away, but I enact some of these things to keep up our relationship. I talk with him almost every day, sometimes only once a day. If not, I have to talk to him once a week. He's like my little brother. So that's one of the things I do. But um, You know, I'm an only child, and I, with my money so far in adulthood, have collected a lot of things, and I have a small, tight-knit friend group, but not everyone likes what I like. So I have a few things I want to give away. I could give it to charity. I could try and sell it for money. But I realized that, especially because he's the oldest brother, he's used to giving things and being things handed down to him from his other family members. So I knew it wouldn't insult him if I said, you know, I'm getting a new desk, I'm getting a new gaming chair, I'm getting this new thing. Do you want my old one? It's still in good condition. Can you use it? And he appreciated that. It solved a lot of his problems. At the same time, I didn't want to be known as the friend who only gives gifts just because it's easy. I'm giving you away and you can use it. I'll give it to you. So this might be an extreme. I'm not saying an extreme example, but something that may not be normal. Because maybe it might have been a little expensive, but especially because I see him as my little brother, I knew he was having trouble in college, and he likes to work out, but he had back problems and shoulder problems that stopped him from it. And I recognize it's because his backpack is way too heavy with all of his stuff and all of his notebooks and all of his books. So I kind of bought him like a cheaper tablet, so he could take notes on OneNote and get his like digital books on there. And now he can work out better. It's saved his shoulder problems. He's doing a lot better in school. And I wanted to make sure I wasn't seen in a negative light, and I wanted to help him out. And that's one of the things that has brought us so close together, is doing that. Now, it doesn't have to be expensive. The idea is that it's thoughtful, and you want to help people in their lives, and you expect them to help you. It's a society, a community of giving and taking in a balanced manner. Now, I don't expect for him to buy me a tablet or a phone or a car or anything else, because I also know where he is in life. So I'm not trying to show him up, I'm trying to help him, and it's okay if he can't meet it. And that's, again, is managing expectations. And again, I just started this series, so we have a lot of topics we're going to get to in the future and do sessions like this. The last part is about keeping ties and mitigating drift, or setting your sails. So first of all, drift can be unintentional, it can be intentional. When it's unintentional, it tends to be passive, when naturally our priorities change as people reciprocate less and less and less. So maybe my friend invited me to something and I can't make it. Did I follow up with them and put the same effort or energy or more in order to keep the friendship going, or did I not follow up with them? So that lessening of energy just compounds over time until neither of us are putting that energy in, and we drifted apart, not because we're bad, not because we don't like each other. We just didn't continue to put that extra little bit of effort in. We took the easy route, maybe unintentionally. It's okay, but if we're more intentional about it, it happens less and less and less, and we become closer and closer and closer. Even if, like I say, I moved away to a different state, and we're still pretty close. And then it's active. Sometimes people distance themselves, and instead of cutting people off, they just decide to be tactful about it. They drift, they distance themselves slowly, 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 slowly. It's something that I talk about in another, that I've done in the past with some of my clients, and I talk about ghosting and drifting and what it is. And I will get more into that in another time. But as for passive drifting, not everything is drift. People go through cycles. We get busy at different times of the year. Sometimes life gets harder or easier. We have more or less time, or sometimes we spend so much time with somebody, we want time to think for ourselves. So sometimes our priorities temporarily change, or we just need to rebalance our life a little bit, but it's not bad. Things go in cycles. My friend Terrence is in the exotic car community. I don't own an exotic car yet. I'm working my way up there, but I'm not there yet. So I cannot join him in his Ferrari and with all of his friends to go on road trips and all this stuff. I'll be left in the dust and I'll make them look bad. So, it's just not going to work out. So during the winter, he would spend a ton of time with me and our other friends. And then he straight up said, in the summer, I miss my other friends. That's the really thing we have in common. I'm going to go spend time with them. And it was very hard to spend time with him. Now, at the time, I might have been worried about us drifting, but he at least checked in on me and our other friends once or twice a week. And we did the same. And we invited him knowing he might not make it. But he still responded in kind and said, I'm sorry, I can't, I have this thing. But sometimes he'd show up. And eventually what ended up happening is He realized he had so much more in common with us than his other friends, and he felt bad about kind of just leaving us and going dry, that we became even closer. So like I said, we should always give the opportunity to people. As long as they're not taking advantage, just give them that opportunity, and don't automatically assume we're drifting. Assume that, the best of people, especially those closest to you. So we're getting near the end. Some key takeaways. Be genuinely interested in the person. If you cannot find a reason to be interested in them, move on. It is also our duty with the people we've committed to in marriage that we had a reason to be interested in them. We saw something in them, which again, I'll talk about this process in the future, but to continuously learn about them, because we will learn about ourselves until the day we die. So we can't even hope to learn who the other person is completely if we can't know ourselves. That's not a negative thing. It's a positive. It means there's always more to learn about somebody. And you can be married to somebody until you die, 60, 70, 80 years, however long you live, both of you. And there's always more to explore. It's not a dead end. Make sure that they know that you remember them, and remember what was said. Remember the stories you've built with them. Be thoughtful and occasionally go out of your way. Be useful, solve problems. Like I said, if you want the relationship, it's your job to just give the opportunity to flourish, and by putting the effort and energy in and giving that space. And if they don't want it, it's their problem. You can't make them. Just like people who do not want help in their lives, you cannot force them to want the help. They have to want it to receive it. Same thing with relationships. They have to want the relationship, and they have to reciprocate. Be meaningful and decisive. We should do everything with intention as much as possible. Not everything in life needs to be that serious, but when it comes to marriage and relationships, they affect us in so many more ways than people realize. So we need to be intentional, and it is a serious topic. And the easiest thing I can say is tell stories, listen to stories, and build stories and experiences with other people. I can buy you a car. I can give you objects. But if I give you a car and you never drive it, you never connected it with, you never had that experience. If we never went in a helicopter ride to experience what that is, it's so much different than just having the material world. People remember their experiences more than anything else. So that's what we should focus on. That's how we get to know people. That's how we maintain our relationships. So some some things that I want you to do, and I want people to understand this. I may only be doing a meetup once a week or twice a week. It's so easy to leave this and go home, and the rest of this week forget about it, that it exists, until we meet the next time. Today, tonight, if you have the possibility, if it's too late to call somebody, send them a text. Reach out to somebody, tell them how you appreciate them. Set up something with someone you are on good terms with, but you haven't talked to or seen in a while. And if it's your significant other, if you have one, if you are married, or you have a very close friend, say something you don't think they've heard in a while that you really admire about them. Try and get that relationship to move forward. So I want everyone to write down before next time what they think of themselves. What do you know about yourself? What do you think has defined you as a person? What are some stories? What has inspired you? Why do you like things, and what are they? Write it all down and implement it today. This is something we need to start practicing every day. Now, I said a lot over the course of this hour. This recording will be up online, and I'll show you where to find it if you need to rewatch it again or take notes the second time. But choose a couple of things and implement it day by day. If we don't, then we cannot go through the self-development process. And like I said, it's all about playing tennis. Even if you have to be the one to serve or pick up the ball and try again, hit something into their court and give them the ability to play with you. But they cannot play the game with you. They cannot interact with you if you don't give them the opportunity. If they're waiting at the tennis court and you never show up, if they're waiting at the tennis court and you didn't plan and bring the rackets and the balls with you to play, if you're not willing to hit it back or go out on a limb and serve it, then you cannot play together. You cannot interact. I use the analogy of a game, but I'm not trying to use the gamification idea in a negative sense. It's more so we're working together and interacting with each other. So after my first event yesterday, we had a total of 43 members who have joined, and one person decided they wanted to rate it. I'm not saying I'm good or bad. I'm just saying if you felt good, strong, in a positive or negative sense, the more ratings I have, the more realistic my group will come across to other people and help them make a decision on whether they want to interact with me and be a part of not just what I have to say, but interacting in these sessions with you and everyone else who decides to join. So please make sure to go and give the rating that you think I deserve. And if you do so, please either put a comment or a suggestion or tell me directly. It's very important to me that I give value. So I want to know my audience and give better value. A lot of what I talk about is generic. I tried to take suggestions from the last time and be more specific and even engage in a more interactive process. And I can only do that if people interact with me and they keep coming back week to week so that I can make it more and more tailored. One last thing. So if you have any questions or want to talk to me during the week to give feedback or set up things with me, please reach out. You can message me on Meetup. It's not the best way to reach me, but it is a way. One thing I will be doing is showing you where you can find these recordings and be part of a community that comments every day. We have 10 members in our community on this new platform called School. What we're doing is the first 50 members sign up free. After that, the membership will go up to a certain amount that we haven't decided yet. But what will happen is I will be putting all of these recordings there for you to watch at your leisure. But I will also be going through this, what's called the Single to Married program, which I said teaches you how to get married in a year or less, or at least teaches the skills that you need. So there will be multiple free courses there as long as you're one of the first 50 to sign up. After that, it's a certain amount. And as always, that is one of the easiest ways to reach me in order to get one-on-one help when it comes to one-on-one coaching, in order to make sure I can tailor it to you and your life. I do prefer one-on-one, and I do charge a certain amount for that coaching process. But that community allows you to interact with me and other people, like-minded individuals who want to support you in what you're doing and maybe even give you some advice, and we can come in and give our perspective. So there are forums, there are videos we'll post, and it's like, if it's better than Facebook, because the only people there are not people you don't want to know about the problems. And it's better than Reddit too, because it's a private group, so those posts will not show up on a search engine. And then, of course, my website, thegreatestinstitution.com. I have my email there, my phone number. You can text or call me at that. Like I said, if it's something important or suggestions, I welcome it. If it's more of a lengthy process, I would love to set up a one-on-one coaching session with you. With that being said, if I follow this hyperlink, this is what it's going to look like. This is the group that we're looking at. It's called From Single to Married Program. You go to School. Right now, I'm going to be changing the URL. I decided to make it unisex. I haven't done that yet. But it's a whole program. It's private. Right now, I said 10. I guess we have 7 members. Right now, it's free. And one of the important things is somebody brought up last time about having to deal with narcissists or other issues. I am not an expert in all facets of relationship. I think everyone can learn something until the day we die. So I do partner with, I mentioned his name, Terrence, before, who was a criminologist and studies human behavior and how it goes to crime. So I would say when it comes to certain topics, he will come and speak more than I will. And I'm doing that because I want to give people a holistic experience. I don't think we should take all of our knowledge from just one person, but I hope that I give people enough value that you might want to continue on this journey or this process with me. With that being said, looks like somebody hopped on. There's a classroom. I'm currently filling it out. So you'll find an introduction and the public recordings from Meetup right there in order. We'll have a calendar of live events. Currently, we don't have enough people, but we're going to be doing live events in the future. This is live Q&A sessions on Zoom, kind of like this. Directly there, you'll get a notification, and you can just click on it and join. And the really cool thing is there are leaderboards. So you actually get, I don't want to say that. You get rewards for being more engaged. You can unlock more and more things in this community as we build it, and people will see you as a contributor as well. So if you're really wanting to help others and be part of the process for other people and maybe give some tips or tricks you've learned or examples in your life, they will be able to see that you've engaged a lot within this community. So I'm also, as we build this up, hopefully to 50 people and then on from there, deciding how best I can give back to those people who are very engaged and serious about this. So if you need help signing up for this or going to my website or booking me one-on-one, please let me know now if you want. Otherwise, I will be putting the information in the chat on Meetup, in the chat here, and please feel free to reach out to me at your earliest convenience. So with that being said, I'm going to stop the recording.